ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாபிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தகே जगदः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि आर्तान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषनभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरधाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so all right, so we'll do like a just my camera. Dasakam 4. Let's do a review. Stanzas 1 to yeah. We see what I had. Yeah, 1 to 12. So you can do 6 each, right? So let me see who I had today. Anu Sanjeev Niga, who is 6 Pandrela, and then Bhuvana, can you do the remaining 6, 7 to 12?
हल्यतां मम गुरुष्वतावतीं कल्यते भवतु भासनं यया पष्टमष्टविधयोगचर्यया पुष्टया शुद्धव तुष्टिमाप्नुयाम् ब्रह्मचर्यदृढदारिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनियमैश्च भाविताः कुर्महे दृढममि सुखासनम् पङ्कजात्यमपि वा भवत्पराः तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततम् प्राणवायुमपि यम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयादतापहर्यास्महे भवतु भासनोन्मुखाः अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो तारयेम दिशना मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसम् अन्तरात्रताम् उद्वहेम भवतं कृचिन्तकाः विस्फुटावयवभेदसुन्दरम् त्वत्वपुः सुचिरश्रीलनावशात् आश्रमं मनसि चिन्तयामहे ध्यानयोगनिरतावदाश्रयाः ध्यायतां सकलमूर्तिमीदृशीम् उन्मिषन् मधुरदाहृदात्मनां सान्द्रमोदरसरूपमान्तरं ब्रह्मरूपमयि देव भासते.
Yeah, you can stop.
I know the tune was off.
That's it. Bhuvana, go ahead, yeah.
तत्समास्वद वदन रूपिणीं स्थितिं त्वत्समाधिमयि विश्वनायक आश्रिताः पुनरतः परिच्युता आरभे महिचदारनादिकम्.
That second line, first ashritaha, that visarga will take a F sound. Ashritaf. Okay.
Ashrita punarada parichuda arabe mahichadaranadikam iddamabhyasana nirbalolasat tvatparatma sukha kalpitotsavaha mukta bhakta kulamaulitam gataha sancharema shuka naradadivat tvatsamadhi vijaye duyah punar मंक्षु मोक्ष रसिकः क्रमेण वा योगवक्ष्यमनिलं षडाश्रयै उन्नयत्यज सुषुम्नयात् शनैः.
So, Bhuvana, the first and second line and the punaha, there is a visarga there. To vijaye to yaf punaha. Similarly, second line, anilam shadashrayaihi. Another visarga. Okay.
Shall I repeat that?
No, I can keep going. Yeah, go to the 10th year.
लिङ्गदेहमपि सन्त्य जन्नतो लीयते त्वयि परे निराग्रहः ऊर्ध्वलोककुदुकीतु मूर्धतः सार्धमेव करणैर्निरीयते अग्निवासरवलक्षपक्षपैः
पक्षगैः
उत्तरायणजुषा च दैवदैः प्रापितो रविपदं भवत्परो मोदवान् ध्रुवपदान्तमीयते आस्तितोद महरालये यदा येष वक्त्र दहनोष्मनार्त्यते ईयते भवतु पाश्रयस्तथा वेदसा पदमदः पुरैव वा.
Okay. All right. So we'll continue with 13 and 14, then we'll wrap up Dasakam 4. Vidya, you can be student first half, and Gayatri, you can be student. Stanza 13. Tatra va tava pade tava vasanthe prakrita pralayaheti muktatam swechhaya khalu pura vimuchyate samvibidya jagadanda mojasa. Just a recap, because it's been a week. So we saw how through the path of Ashtanga Yogam, how you can actually get yourself liberated. And like we said, you cannot separate Ashtanga Yogam away from Bhakti, because we saw how as part of the Ashtanga Yogam, all the meditation that is actually required and all the processes you have to go through, you cannot do till you are imagining some form of the Lord and have that Bhakti in you. So you cannot be separated, but this is a very rigorous process. And we saw how when you finally are able to take your prana vayu through your chakras, and then finally you're able to bring it up, and then you have a choice. It's going through the Sushumna Nadi, and then you can either break it through the Agneya chakra, which is between the two eyes, or a Sahasrara chakra, which is the top of your head. And then that will help you decide which kind of liberation you want. Either you're getting fully liberated and merging with the Lord, or it gives you an option to go to the higher realms, right? With higher consciousness, you get that Ashta Siddhi, and then you can be there, and it talks how the soul traverses through the various worlds, right, which are there, and eventually goes to Satya Loka or Brahma Loka, and it can also go to other places there. So here it says, like I was telling that example last time, when you're taking that connection flight, you are waiting in Frankfurt, but you don't want to wait in Brahma Loka. At any point, with the yogic power you have, it can pierce through the Brahmandam, and we'll see what the Brahmandam is in the fifth Dashakam, and eventually it can go and merge into the Lord. So you don't have to always follow a linear path. Depending on how strong your yogic powers are, you can always take a separate path and leave. So tatrava tava padetava vasan, comma, prakruta pralaya. So this word, such words, prakruta pralaya, all of those things I'll explain much later, because it's very detailed explanation of what it is. So, but that's going to come later. But prakruta pralaya is the end of the life of Brahma, the pralayam that happens. So prakruta pralaya eti muktatam swechaya khalu pura. Some books have pura p. If you have a p there, you can just remove that. It's not needed. Khalu pura vimuchyate, comma, sambibhidya jagadandam ojasa. Tatra va tava pade tava vasan prakrita pralayaheti muktatam swechaya khalu pura vimuchyate sambibhidya jagadandam ojasa.
Tatra va tava padhe tava vasan prakrita pralaya eti muktatam swachaya kalupura vimuchyate samvipidya jagatandamojasa.
The second and first word swechaya.
Swechaya.
Swa ichaya. That's swa ichaya. So according to its wish. That's what it is.
Okay. Tatra va tava pade tava vasan prakrita pralaya eti muktatam swachaya kalupura vimuchyate samvipidya jagatandamojasa.
The word again is swachaya. You are saying it's swechaya.
Okay, swechaya. Swechaya kalupura vimuchyate samvipidya jagatandamojasa.
तत्र वा तव पदे तवा वसन् प्राकृत प्रलय एति मुक्ततां स्वेच्छया खलु पुरा विमुच्यते संविमिद्ध जगदण्ड मोजसा.
Jagadandam ojasa, if you're breaking it.
Okay, जगदण्ड मोजसा. तत्र वा तव पदे तवा वसन् प्राकृत प्रलय एति मुक्ततां स्वेच्छया खलु पुरा विमुच्यते संविमिद्ध जगदण्डमोजसा.
That's the 14. Tasya cha kshitipayo maho niladhyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi tattadatmakataya vishan sukhi yati te padamanhavritam vibho. Like we spoke last time, that even when the soul is departing, it has to have something called as a sukshma shariram, right? Which still has the ability, which has the panchabhutam in that. It still has something called as a mahat, which is the supreme consciousness. It has something called as an ahankaram, which is the concept of individuality. So all of this is going to come in the next dashakam. So it has 7 layers which are still surrounding that soul. So eventually, when it has to leave the Brahmandam and then go merge with the supreme consciousness or the supreme Lord Paramatma, it has to shed through all of those things. So once it has reached that point where it is piercing and leaving, it talks about how each of those layers are shed in sequence, and eventually all that is left is just a coarse consciousness of the soul, which then goes and padam anavratam. It goes and merges into you, Bhagavan, which is the supreme consciousness. We are going to see the reverse process of this playing in Dashakam 5. So when you complete Dashakam 5, you will see how everything is getting formed. So now when the soul is leaving, it has to go in the reverse order, right? Which is the shedding of all of this. Tasya cha kshiti payo maho nila. Maho nila is one word. Maho nila. Dyo, and put a plus after that. Maho nila. Dyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi. So 7 layers there. Saptakavritihi. The 2 lines are together. Tattadhatma kataya vishan sukhi, comma, yati te padamanavritam vibho. Tasya chakshitipayo maho niladhyo mahat prakriti saptakavritihi. Tattadhatma kataya vishan sukhi, yati te padamanavritam vibho.
Tasya sa shitipayo maho nila Dhyomahat prakriti saptaka vriti tattadatmakata vishan sukhi yati te padam anavrutam vibho.
The first line is saptakavritihi. This is visarga at the end.
Saptaka vritihi. Okay. Tasya cha shitipayo maho nila Dhyomahat prakriti saptaka vritihi tattadat makadaya vishan sukhi yadi te padamanavritam vibho.
तस्य च श्रुतिपयो महोनिल दो महत्प्रकृति सप्तकावृतिः तत्तदात्मकतया विशन् सुखी याति ते पद्मनावृतं विभो.
Gayatri, on the first line, like Dio on the word. D-H-Y-O, Dio.
Dio, okay. तस्य च श्रुतिपयो महोनिल द्यो महत् प्रकृति सप्तकावृतिः तत्तदात्मकतया विशन् सुखी याति ते पदमनावृतं विभो.
That's a 15. Archiradigatimeedrishim brajanne vichutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavad gunodhayan ucharantamanilesha pahimam. So this two paths. One is called as the Dhumra Margam, which is the path of smoke or the path of darkness, which is kind of what a normal human being, when like we die, our soul goes through. Then something called as the Archiradi Margam, which is the path of light, which are all the liberated souls go through. So it says this way, the soul, like we spoke earlier, once the soul gets liberated, it goes through the Archiradi Margam, which is the path of light. And once it goes through the path, it doesn't come back and reincarnate back on the earthly plane, right? It doesn't come back at all. Well, all of us, most of us at least, when we go through the Dhumra Margam, we are going to keep reincarnating till we burn away all our karmas. So here, anyway, this Dashakam wraps up saying, oh, Guru Arapa, please put me also on the path where, I don't keep getting born and getting reincarnated back on this earth, and always, and eradicate my ailments, because Pahimam, please protect me, because I'm always singing your praises. Archiradi gatim idrishim. If you want to break it, Datma, gatim idrishim brajan, comma, bichutim na bhajate jagatpate, comma, sachidatmaka bhavat gunodayan. If we have a nu, we just break it into an in and a u. So gunodayan, comma. Next word starts with the u. Ucharantam anilesha pahimam. Archiradigatimeedrishim brajan bichutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavat gunodayan ucharantamanilesha pahimam.
Arshiradigati mitrushim vrajan vichyutim na bhajate jagatpate sachidatmaka bhavat gunodayan उच्चरन्तमनिलेश पाहि माम् अर्षिरादिगतिमीतृषीं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पथे सच्चिदात्मका भवद्गुणोदया सच्चिदात्मका
The makka,
भवद्गुणोदयान्
the
सच्चिदात्मका
the
भवत्
makka. Anga you're saying that ah sound, that's why it's not landing.
Magha.
That makka.
Okay. Sachidatmaka bhavat gunodhayan ucharantamanilesh pahimam.
अर्चिरादिगतिं वृद्धिशिं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पते सच्चिदात्मक भवत गुणोदयान् उच्चरान्तम् अनिलेशं पाहि माम्
Anilesha pahimam.
अनिलेश पाहि माम् अर्चिरादिगतिमृदृशिं व्रजन् विच्युतिं न भजते जगत्पते सच्चिदात्मक भवत गुणोदयान् उच्चरान्तम् अनिलेश पाहि माम्.
The first word, Gayatri, gatim idrishim.
Gatim idrishim.
Yeah, gatim idrishim. That's easy to break it that way. Okay.
Idrishim. Okay.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay. We'll move on to Dashakam 5. Dashakam 5 is a very complicated topic. So, I kind of preface this by saying, like it's a little bit like theory. So when you study, you have to first learn the theory and then you have to apply it to get to the practicals. The theory, 90% of people will not understand, but eventually when you go to the practical application, you understand the theory better then, right? So that's what this is. And the reason, so this is now going to talk about, like the first we spoke about Bhagavan and how to attain him. So now the next set of things, before, like we said, Narayaneeyam is going to have the dasha, all the avatarams coming, more than 10 avatarams are going to be coming. But before all the avatarams itself happen, how did the entire cosmos come about, right? So because Brahma was the first being or god or demigod that who came about. So how did even Brahma come about, right? And what happened even before Brahma was there? And what's going to happen after Brahma comes. So all of that is outlined between Dashakam 5 and 10. So that entire span of like 6 Dashakams is going to be that. And because it's the creation of the cosmos, it's very, very theoretical and it's very, very difficult to even understand the concept of it. But I'm not going to go too much into detail. But if any of you want to double click on it further, when we meet one-on-one or sometimes separately, I can give you more examples of parallel, right? Examples which we can relate to, but I'll try my best to make you all understand. But even if you do not understand this thing, the takeaway you have to realize here is none of this cosmos or the entire world is going to be in existence without the energy of the Bhagavan. That is the key takeaway, right? So later on, when we come to Krishna Avataram and Krishna is lifting Govardhana with the tip of his pinky finger of his left hand standing on one foot, you cannot question how is that possible. Because if somebody has created the whole universe, lifting a Govardhana mountain, the tip of a pinky finger is not a big deal, right? So that's why you have to understand all of these concepts upfront. So later on, some of those things become more relatable. When we talk about Varaha Avataram, when we talk about Krishna Avataram or Rama Avataram, it will become more easier then. Anyway, so Dashakam 5, this is the 4-liner tune. व्यक्ता व्यक्तमिदं न किञ्चिदभवत् प्राक्-प्राकृतप्रक्षये मायायां गुणसाम्यरुद्धविकृतौ त्वय्यागतायां लयं नो मृत्युश्च तथामृतं च समभूत् नाह्नो न रात्रे स्थितिः तत्रैकस्त्वमशिष्यताः किल परानन्दप्रकाशात्मनः. So the title of this, at least in my book, I'll go according to that. It Virat Purushotpatti, Purusha Utpatti Prakara Varnanam. So which is the formation of the Virat Purusha, which is going to come at the end of this, but it's also the formation of the cosmos and then the formation of the Virat Purusha. Okay, so it talks about now that a lot of words are going to come in here, but unfortunately the definitions of those words are going to come further down. So it talks about something called as a Prakrita Pralayam, which is something that happens at the end of the life of Brahma. And we'll see how long that is and all that later. But at the end of the life of Brahma, when the Prakrita Pralayam happens, there is absolutely nothingness that is there. So, which means that anything which is vyaktam, which is anything which is manifested in some shape. So, you look around you, you have the earth, and you have all these things which are in earth, which are manifested. We are there, we have all these inert beings. You look at all the other planetary systems. So, all of those things are something called as which is manifested into some shape. Then there is something called as unmanifested. So things which is just pure energy, which has not taken any shape, which is the unmanifested portion. So he says at the end of the Prakrita Pralaya, he says there's nothing that is manifested and there's nothing that is unmanifested. There's a state of nothingness that is there. And when there's a state of nothingness, then at that time, there is no birth. There's nobody who's being born. If nobody is being born, there's nobody who is dying. There is no concept of day or night because there's no energy source like a sun to give day or night. So there's no day, there's no night, nothing. There is no concept of time also because everything is just there. There's absolutely nothingness, but only one thing existed still, which always continues to exist. He says, you, Bhagavan, are still existing as pure energy without any shape, without any form, and all of that. You are still existing as the supreme bliss consciousness, which is still always there, which never dies. So that energy source of you as Brahman, which we talk about, is always there. And even at the end of the Prakrita Pralaya, that continues to be there. So it starts from nothingness, which is for us, nothingness still means there is something there, and it will explain that in the second stanza. Vyakta Vyaktamidam. So it's Vyakta Avyakta, that's one word. Vyakta Vyaktamidam. Na Kinchida Bhavat. Put a comma after it. Prakrita Prakshaye, comma. Mayayam Guna Samya Ruddha Vikritau, comma. Tvaya Gatayam Layam. Vyakta Vyaktamidam na kinchida bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikritau tvaya gatayam layam.
Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchi bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasam yaruddha vikrutau tvaya gathayam layam.
And the first line,
tvaya gathayam layam.
Yeah, first line like kinchida bhavat.
Kinchit.
Kinchida bhavat.
The. Vyakta vyaktamidham na kinchitha bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayaya gunasam yaruddha vikrudhau tvaya gathayam layam.
Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchit bhavat prakrita prakshaye mayayam gunasamya ruddha vikratau tvaya gatayam layam.
Gayatri, the first line after bhavat is the past. Kinchida bhavat and then comma.
Vyakta vyaktamidam na kinchit bhavat.
No, kinchida bhavat.
किंचित भवत् व्यक्त्या व्यक्तमिदं न किंचित भवत् प्राकृत प्रक्षये मायायां गुणसाम्य रुद्ध विकृतौ त्वया गतायां लयम्.
No, mrityuscha tadamritam cha samabhut. So those who are following Sanskrit, if you have an in end there, that will go away. It becomes a it and a comma. Samabhut, comma. Next word, nah, no. That ha. So it's a nah, no, na ratrehe. Put a is ratres stitihi. And then put a visarga and comma at the end. Nah, no, na ratres stitihi, comma. Then the next line, if it starts with the is or a s in the beginning, that will go away. Tatraikas tvama shishyataha. Put a if or a h to join it. Shishyatah kila, comma. Parananda prakashatmana. Just you were shining as light, just pure energy that was there.
ராஜிஜி அந்த ராத்திரேக்கு அப்புறம் விசர்கா இருக்கா? நராத்ரேன்
ராத்ரேஹ அந்த விசர்கா வந்து will take a is sound. ராத்ரேஸ் ஸ்திதிஹி. नो मृत्युश्च तथामृतं च समभूत् नाह्नो न रात्रेस् स्थितिः तत्रैकस्त्वमशिष्यताः किल परानन्दप्रकाशात्मना.
नो मृत्युश्च तथा अमृतं च समभूत् नाह्नो न रात्रे स्थितिः तत्र एकस्त्वम् अशि यथा किल परानन्द प्रकाशात्मना. பரானந்த பிரகாஷாத்மனா.
And then the first third line la and the amritam thada amritam are the two words, but then you generally don't say that a sound there because there's a prefixing it, right? So it becomes tada amritam as one word.
Okay, split பண்ண வேண்டாம். Okay. No मृत्युश्च तथामृतं च समभूत् नाह्नो न रात्रे स्थितिः तत्र एकस्त्वम् अशित् यथा किल परानन्द प्रकाशात्मना.
Remember in the fourth line, you don't have to break it as tatraikas, then it'll land for you.
Okay, okay, நான் தத்ர ஏகஸ்வம்னு ஸ்ப்ளிட் பண்ண.
Tatraikastvam. Just say it as one word, it'll land.
Okay. तत्रैकस्त्वम् अशित्यता किल परानन्द प्रकाशात्मना. Okay.
नो मृत्युश्च तदामृतं च सम्भूनानोः न रात्रे स्थितिश्च तत्रैकस्तवमशीयस यथा किल परानन्द प्रकाशात्मना.
Guys, in the third line, remember we removed that in, so we put a it samabhut.
Oh, samabhut. Okay.
Bhut, and then stitihi at the end of the third line, visarga.
Okay.
And then fourth line, the is will go away, just tatraikas.
Okay. नो मृत्युश्च तदामृतं च सम्भूतरत्नाहो
Samabhut, comma.
समभूतनाहो न रात्रे स्थितिः तत्रैकस्तवमशीयसा यथाः किल परानन्द प्रकाशात्मना.
Then fourth line once more. Tatraikastvamashishyatāh kila.
तत्रैकस्तवमशीयथा किल.
Shishyatah kila.
என்னது?
Shishyatah kila.
शिष्यथा किल परानन्द प्रकाशात्मना.
Answer to Kala karma gunascha jiva nivahaha vishwam cha karyam vibho chillhilarati me yushittvai tada nirlinatamahayuhu tesham naiva vadantya sattvamai bhoho shaktyatmana tishthatam no chet kim gagana prasuna sadrisham bhuyo bhavet sambhavah. So a little bit continuing about that, saying that, there's, like I said, there's no concept of time. There is nothing that is there. So there's no concept of time. All the karmas of all the entities are also non-existent. And all the jivas who are to be born are also not there. But it says, you cannot say it is not there because something cannot come out of nothing, right? So it says it's all there, but it is all there in a very latent form, in a very sukshmam form, right? And the way to understand this is, a lot of you might be gardeners, right? So I always give that example. You pick up a seed and then you say, okay, an apple tree is going to come out of the seed. The kids are going to be like, that's impossible. It's a small seed. What do you mean a tree is going to come out of the seed, right? But then you plant the seed and then you water it, and under the right environmental conditions, a tree can come out of it, right? Which means whatever was required for the creation of a tree is present in the seed, and then some external reactions have to happen for the tree to sprout, right? That is the simplest way to understand this. Everything that is going to be formed later is all there in a very subtle, latent form without being active in you, O Bhagavan, in that supreme consciousness which is always there, except that it has not taken shape yet, right? She says that's what he says. She says it's not like something new is coming out. Like, an example he's giving is you can't see a flower in the sky without a tree, which is non-existent. She says this is not like that non-existent flower in the sky. This is something which is always there, just that you don't see it in that current form. It is always existing in that sukshma or latent form in you. So kalaha, put a ich sound to join. Kala, karma, gunasha, jiva, nivahaha. Add a visarga there. You will not have it. So nivahaha, comma. Vishwam cha karyam vibho, comma. Chillilaratim. That is one long word. You have to say it together. Chillilaratim eyushi tvai tada, comma. Nirlinatam ayayuhu. You can break at that ma if you want. Nirlinatam ayayuhu. Kalah karma gunascha jiva nivahaha. Vishwam cha karyam vibho. Chillilaratim eyushe tada. Nirlinatam ayayuhu.
कालः कर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीर्लारतं ये युषि त्वयि दधा निर्लीनतामायुयुः कालः कर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिवहाः विश्वं च कार्यं विभो चिल्लीलारतं ये युषि त्वयि दधा निर्लीनधामायुयुः आययुः
Ayayuhu.
चिल्लीलारतं ये युषि त्वयि दया निर्लीनधाम् आययुः
कालः कर्मगुणाश्च जीवनिवाहः विश्वं च कार्यविभो चिल्लीलारतिं येयुषि त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामायुः
Ayayuhu.
आयुः
And the who, ha sound. Ayayuhu.
आययुः कालः कर्म गुणाश्च जीवनिवः विश्वं च कार्यविभो चिल्लीलारतिमेयुषि त्वयि तदा निर्लीनतामाययुः.
And then the first word, kalaha, you're saying, right? That visarga will become a H. So, ich sound. Kalah karma.
Kala. Okay.
Tesham naiva vadantya sattvamayi bhoho, comma. Shaktyatmana tishthatam, comma. No chet kim gagana prasuna sadrisham, comma. Bhuyo bhavet sambhavah. Tesham naiva vadantya sattvamayi bhoho shaktyatmana tishthatam no chet kim gagana prasuna sadrisham bhuyo bhavet sambhavah.
तेषां नैव वदन्ति असत्वं
Yeah, you don't have to break the T and R. The T and R becomes Satya. So vadantya sattvamayi.
वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भो शक्त्यात्मनादिष्टतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः तेषां नैव वदन्ति असत्त्वं मयि विभो शक्त्यात्मनादिष्टता नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः
The third line la bhoho. Okay, there's a visarga there.
भोः तेषां नैव वदन्ति असत्त्वमयि
Yeah.
भोः
Vadantya sattvamai. One word.
वदन्त्य நான் அதை ஸ்ப்ளிட் பண்ணி படிக்கிறேன் சாரி அபவுட் தட் वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि विभोः मयि मयि भोः
Illa,
मयि भोः
illa, don't even try to break that. The only place you can break that is the im there, right? So vadantya sattvam ai bhoho, if you want to break it, or if you don't, just better to just say the whole thing. Vadantya sattvam ai bhoho.
ओके वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भोः
Yeah, that's it.
शक्त्यात्मनादिष्टतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः
तेषां नैव वदन्त्यसत्त्वमयि भोः शक्त्यात्मना तृष्टताम् नो चेत् किं प्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः
The fourth line, gagana prasuna. Yeah.
गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः तेषां नैव वदन्त्य सत्त्वमयि भूः शक्त्यात्मना तृष्टतां नो चेत् किं गगनप्रसूनसदृशां भूयो भवेत् सम्भवः
Bhavet
सम्भवः
That's it. एवं च द्विपरार्धकालविगता वीक्षांसि सृक्षात्मिकां बिभ्राणे त्वयि चुक्षुभे त्रिभुवनी भावाय माया स्वयं मायातः खलु कालशक्तिरखिला दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रादुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदधुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्. So like when this is everything is there, but still nothing is there, kind of an idea. When that's all there as just one energy, as a supreme energy. So it says Dvipararda. So you all would have heard the Sankalpam. No, Dvitiya Pararde, right? Dvitiya Pararde is second Pararda. I'll explain that Sankalpam very detailed in Dashakam 7. But Dvipararda means the end of both the Pararda. So the entire life of Brahma is divided into two halves. First, Pratama Pararde, Dvitiya Pararde. The Dvipararda means end of both the Parardas of Brahma. Like we said, at the end of when the Prakrita Pralayam is happening, when there's absolutely nothing. So at that time, when everything has to start fresh. So there's now this state of nothingness that is there, right? So we all are bound by karma, because of which we all have desire. We all have motive to do something. Majority of us do things because we have a motive. And the motive is we do something because we are expecting something in return. So we are bound to that action, right? We are bound to the desire which is actually happening. But this Paramatma who's there, he's not he or she, there's no gender because it's just energy. So this Paramatma, it's not bound to anything. It does not have any, karma, or it doesn't have any need for anything. However, just like how when you place a magnet next to a set of nails, the magnet inherently has properties to attract the nails because of the magnetism. Similarly, when the appropriate time comes after the Dvipararda gets over, and there's an equal amount of period of time when that happens, then this Paramatma who's there, who is just a supreme bliss, right? There is a set of, I would explain it in a very high level term. There's something called as, in fact, I'll explain it in the next stanza when it comes. So it says at this time, this Paramatma then decides that it's time to begin the process of creation again, right? So that process is called as Ikshana, which is just seeing. Of course, this Paramatma does not have eyes like we have, right? But it's like a trigger point to say, okay, now the time has come for the process to start of creation to start. When that trigger point happens, then the balance that is there is going to get disturbed. And then we're going to see what is going to start coming. So it just says that when the appropriate time comes, the process automatically kicks in. There is no physical or no, trigger point that is required. The time is the trigger at that point, at the appropriate time. And it's a very cyclical thing. We'll see later on in Dasakam 6 and 7 and 8 how this entire process is extremely cyclical. So at the appropriate time, the process starts, and at the right time, the process will also end. Evam cha dvipararda kala vigata viksham. That's one word. Vigata viksham si srikshatmikam. And then a comma. So that whole line is together. Bibhrane tvai, comma, chukshubhe, tribhuvani, bhavaya maya swayam. Evam cha dvipararda kala vigata viksham sisrikshatmikam bibhrane tvai, chukshubhe, tribhuvani, bhavaya maya swayam.
Evam cha dvipararda
Pararda. Oh, sorry, somebody. Vidya.
Yeah, Bhuvana சொல்றா, it's okay. அவ முடிச்சிட்டு அதுக்கப்புறம் நான் சொல்றேன்.
Oh. No, it's you and Gayatri are doing it, right?
Oh, yeah. யாரு சொல்ல ஆரம்பிச்சான்னு தெரியல. Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
I just...
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on, not on.
Yeah, I muted Divya. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that's okay. Evam cha dvipararthakala vikadhau isham sisrushatmika bibrane dvai sukshubhe tripuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
So the first line left, Bigatau Iksham is correct, but then you cannot break it that way unless you put a comma there. So it becomes Bigata Viksham as one word.
Vigatau viksham.
Bigata Viksham. It's one word, Bigata Viksham. Okay. And then second line, after Twai, there is a comma. Okay. Bibhrane Twai, comma.
Evam cha dvipararthakala vikatau viksham sisrushatmikam bibrane tvai sukshubhe tripuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
You said Bigatau again.
Bigatau isham.
Vigata Viksham. Okay.
Vigata viksham.
Evam cha dviparardakala vigata viksham shishrutatmikam bibrane tvai chukshume tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
The second line after Tvai, Gayatri, there's a comma.
Tvai, okay. Evam cha dviparardakala vigata viksham shishrutatmikam bibrane tvayim chukshubhe tribhuvani bhavaya maya swayam.
Mayatah, put a ich or a h to join. Mayatah kalu, comma. Kala shaktir akila. If you want to break at that ra, you can do that. Kala shaktir akila drishtam swabhavopi cha, comma. Pradurbhuya gunan vikasya bidaduhu. That is there. We're going to remove it. Put a visargan comma. Bidaduhu. Tasyas sahaya kriyam. Mayatah kalu kala shakti rakila drishtam swabhavopi cha pradurbhuya gunan vikasya bidaduhu tasyas sahaya kriyam.
Mayadah kalu kala shakti akila drishtam swabhavopi cha praturbhuya gunan vikasya vidatu tasya sahaya kriyam.
The third line left, sorry, Vidya was saying, third line left after kalu, there is a comma in the third line. And the fourth line, bidaduhu, we are removing that is and putting a visarga and comma.
Bidaduhu, okay. मायादः खलु कालशक्ति अखिलादृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च प्रातुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदतुः तस्या सहायक्रियाम्.
मायात् खलु कालशक्ति अखिलादृष्टां स्वभावोऽपि च भ्रातुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदतुः तस्य सहायक्रियाम्. मायात् खलु
मायातः खलु
मायात् खलु कालशक्तिरखिलं दृष्टं स्वभावोऽपि च भ्रातुर्भूय गुणान् विकास्य विदुतुः तस्य सहायक्रियाम्.
Yeah, and the kalu who you are saying in the third line, anga visarga is no visarga there. Mayatah kalu. That's all.
மாயாத் கலு.
அண்ட் விததுஹுக்கு அப்புறம் தஸ்யன்னு சொல்லமா ஒரு இஸ் இருக்கு இல்லையா?
Yeah, and the is will go away because that visarga is coming there,
visarga,
right?
okay.
Yeah, so because of that, that is will go away because you're passing there. So vidaduhu tasya sahaya kriya. Okay, all right, we'll switch halfway. Asudha, you can be a student, and Usha, you can be a student. Stanza 4. माया सन्निहितो प्रविष्ट वपुषा साक्षीति गीतो भवान् भेदैस्तां प्रतिबिम्बतो विविशिवान् जीवोऽपि नैवापरः कालादि प्रतिबोधिता भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महान्युच्यते. Okay, so now process is going to start. So before that starts, right, there are two terms which are being used. One of them is Purusha, one of them is Prakriti. You all would have heard people who chant Lalita Sahasranamam will know the word Prakriti, Vikriti are the words which will come there, right? And you must have heard Purusha for people chant Rudram and Suktam. You have Purusha Suktam, right? It's the same Purusha. So I'll explain what that is. So the way to very highly categorize this in a very brute way is to say this: Purusha is pure spiritual energy, the supreme consciousness which is there, the Paramatma as the other word, or Brahman, what we call. That's called as this is Purusha. It's the same meaning there. Now, this Purusha, since it's pure spiritual energy, there's nothing that can come out of that Purusha. Then there's a parallel version of it, like we always say in yin yang in Chinese, or we say Ardhanarishwara, Shiva Shakti, right? So that's always the two things go together. So there's a pure spiritual energy, which is a Purusha, and then there is a material energy, which is called as a Prakriti. It's called as a Moola Prakriti because it's a Moolam, as in the root from which things can come. Nothing can lead to the creation of that Moola Prakriti. Okay, so that Moola Prakriti is all the material energy which is there. All the creation that's going to happen is going to happen from the material energy. Now, this Prakriti which is there, it initially is in, I'm going to use two words and I'm going to explain what those words are. It's in an unmanifested form and it is in an undifferentiated form. The unmanifested, like we said, is it has not manifested in the form of something, right? It just is in the root form, like we said, in the Sukshma form, which is there, right? And then the undifferentiated is if you take the play dough that you have, or you take a clay. The clay is a big block of clay or a big block of Play-Doh. Now, you can take that Play-Doh, you can create different shapes from it, and you can color it, and now it has a form, which you can call it male, a female, a house, or whatever you want, you can call it. But at the root of it, it is just a block of Play-Doh or a block of clay. That is how the Prakriti is there in the beginning. It is just a set of material matter and material energy. Nothing is created, nothing is formed initially, right? So these are the two which are actually there at the very beginning. Now, the first thing is the interaction between these two is what triggers that ikshana, which I spoke previously, is when this spiritual energy decides that the time has come it then starts disrupting that material energy. And the first thing that comes out of that material energy is something called as a mahat. So this mahat refers to the universal consciousness. When a lot of places you go and say, we are all one consciousness, right? We are all connected by one source. We all have the same consciousness in all of us. When they say that, they're referring to this mahat, because it's from this one universal consciousness everything is going to come, which means inside all of us, we are all connected by that one universal consciousness. I'll give an example in the next stanza about how this gets separated, and I'll give one parallel example. But for now, just keep it. This mahat, which is the universal consciousness, is the first thing that is actually coming out of this prakriti because of the interaction with the purusha. So Maya Sannihito pravishta. You will have the S symbol, but you have to say that together. So Sannihito pravishta vapusha, comma, Sakshiti Gito Bhavan, comma, Bhedaistam Pratibimbato Vivishivan, comma, Jivopi Naiva Paraha. Maya Sannihito pravishta vapusha Sakshiti Gito Bhavan Bhedaistam Pratibimbato Vivishivan Jivopi Naiva Paraha. Asudaniga.
Sorry. Maya sannihitopavishta sakshiti gito bhavan vedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan jivo pinaiva paraha.
The first line after Vapusha, there is a comma. And second line after Vivishivan, there is a comma.
Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan vedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan jivo pinaiva paraha.
Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan bhedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan jivopi naiva paraha. Maya sannihito pravishta vapusha sakshiti gito bhavan bhedaistam pratibimbato vivishivan Jivopi naiva paraha.
Kaladi pratiboditata bhavata, comma, sanchodita cha swayam, comma, maya sakhalu, comma, buddhi. I'm just going to break that next word into like 4 parts for those who want to break it. Buddhi tattvam asrijat. The dhya that is there, I'm going to break into it and the yo there, the dhyo. So asrijat yosau mahanuchyate. Okay, buddhi tattvam asrijat yosau mahanuchyate. Kaladi pratiboditata bhavata sanchodita cha swayam maya sakhalu buddhi tattvam asrijat yosau mahanuchyate.
Kaladi pratiboditata bhavata sanchodita cha swayam maya sa khalu buddhi tattvam asruja dyosau mahanuchyate.
So for the 4th line, after kalu, there is a comma. Okay, and then that if you don't break it into srijat and yosau, it might be difficult to land that. Then you'll end up saying srija dyosau. You end up saying it, but so it'll be easier to break it as srijat and yosau.
Rajesh, is it asrujat or just srujat?
You see, it's Asrijat, but then the S symbol is coming there, right? So, I mean, Asrijat, yeah, correct. Buddhi Tattvam Asrijat Yosau. But if you don't break it into Srijat, what will happen is you'll end up saying Buddhi Tattvam Asrijat. You'll naturally pause after the Ja. So, which I'm trying to avoid, yeah.
कालादिप्रतिबोधितात भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजद्योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
Again, so then the Asrijat, when you say, it becomes Yosau. Why? Yosau Mahanuchate then.
माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
Yeah, that's a right, easier way to say it. And then the Kalu Kapran, there's a comma, okay, fourth line. Yeah, you don't have to repeat it, but yeah, make sure, yeah. Yeah.
कालादिप्रतिबोधिताथ भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
You shall same thing after Kalu in the fourth line, comma, and after Bhavata in the third line.
Yeah. कालादिप्रतिबोधिताथ भवता संचोदिता च स्वयं माया सा खलु बुद्धितत्त्वमसृजत् योऽसौ महानुच्यते.
That's something. Tatra Trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpamahamet yudbodha nishpadakaha chakresmin savikalpa bodhakamahan tattvam mahan khalvasau sampushtam trigunaistamoti bahulam vishnu bhavat preranat. So we saw first the Mahat Tattvam is getting created. And the Mahat, so there, the three gunas, the Sattva guna, Rajo guna, Tamo guna. The Sattva guna is pure, just purity, right? There's no influence, no negative influence. Then the Rajas is more passion, that a desire that we all have. And the Tamo gunam is more like anger, ignorance, and all of that. So everybody has a combination of those gunas. But it says this Mahat, when it is first getting created, it is pure Sattva guna because it thinks everybody is one. Like we said, it's a universal consciousness. The parallel I'm going to draw to all of you here is think of the ocean. The ocean thinks of itself as one big water body, right? It doesn't separate blocks or drops within it, right? It thinks of it as one big body. So keep that parallel thing as the ocean, as the Mahat for now. The second step in the creation that happens is there is a creation of individuality which is getting created. Because at the end of the day, if everything is one supreme consciousness and it is there, then we won't see different things. There are no different planets, no different creatures and different beings. So it's a concept of that individuality is coming. It is called as ahankaram. Now, ahankaram does not mean, it means ego, but it doesn't mean ego as the way we think I am great, not that ego. It is a concept of individuality, which is actually coming, which is the second creation. Now, what this creation is referring to is you take a drop or a bubble or a drop of water from that ocean, right? That is an individual. Now, the ocean, the drop is thinking, I am unique. The ocean thinks I'm great than the other drop, which is actually out there. And this drop thinks that I'm so unique because I have these characteristics. But the drop doesn't realize that this drop and the other drop sitting next to me have all come from the same ocean. And it's all going to go back into the same ocean, right? It doesn't realize that. So that is how all these individual souls are eventually going to get created because they all have this layer of ahankaram which is there, which makes them believe that they are all unique. But at the end of the day, they are all coming from the same Mahat, right? Which is the same consciousness. So anyway, the second layer is which is getting created is that of the concept of ahankaram, which is the ego or the individuality which is there. So tatrasau trigunatmakopi, that's one word, trigunatmakopi cha mahan, comma, sattva pradhanaha, put is pradhanas swayam, comma, jivesmin khalu, comma, Next word, I'm going to break it into 4 parts for those who want. Nirvikalpam aham. So the nirvikalpam, that im, aham, ityudbodha, but you don't have to break it. You can say it nirvikalpam ahamit yudbodha nishpadakaha. So whatever you find easier, but just don't break it in the wrong place. That's all. You can say the whole word together also. Tatrasau trigunaatmakopi cha mahan sattva pradhana swayam jivesmin khalu nirvikalpamahametyudbodha nishpadakaha. Sudha, you're on mute.
तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मकोऽपि च महान् सत्त्वप्रधानः स्वयं जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमित्युद्बोधनिष्पादकः.
The first line mahan, there's a comma, and second line khalu.
तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मकोऽपि च महान् सत्त्वप्रधानः स्वयं जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमित्युद्बोधनिष्पादकः.
तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मकोऽपि च महान् सत्त्वः प्रधानः स्वयं जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमित्युद्बोधनिष्पादकः. तत्रासौ त्रिगुणात्मकोऽपि च महान् सत्त्वं प्रधानः स्वयं जीवेऽस्मिन् खलु निर्विकल्पमहमित्युद्बोधनिष्पादकः.
Chakresmin savikalpa bodhaka mahan tattvam mahan khalvasau. That entire line is together, comma at the very end. Sampushtam trigunais tamoti bahulam. Tamo ati bahulam, but that S symbol is there, so we're saying the whole word together. Tamoti bahulam, comma, Vishnu bhavat preranat. Chakresmin savikalpa bodhaka mahan tattvam mahan khalvasau. Sampushtam trigunais tamoti bahulam. Vishnu bhavat preranat.
चक्रेऽस्मिन् सविकल्पबोधकमहान् तत्त्वं महान् खल्वसौ सम्पुष्टं त्रिगुणैस्तमोति बहुलं विष्णो भवत्प्रेरणात्. चक्रेऽस्मिन् सविकल्पबोधकमहन् तत्त्वं महान् कल्वसौ सम्पुष्टं त्रिगुणैस्तमोति बहुलं विष्णो भवत्प्रेरणात्.
चक्रेऽस्मिन् सविकल्पबोधकमहान् तत्त्वं महान् कल्वसौ सम्पुष्टं त्रिगुणैस्तमोति बहुलं विष्णो भवत्प्रेरणात्. चक्रेऽस्मिन् सविकल्पबोधकमहान् तत्त्वं महान् कल्वसौ सम्पुष्टं त्रिगुणैस्तमोति बहुलं विष्णो भवत्प्रेरणात्.
Ushan, third line, after bodhaka, mahan. You said mahan, there's no akaram there, just mahan tattvam. Because it's referring to mahat, but it becomes an in there. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Stanza 6. Soham chatrigunakramhat trividatam asadhya vaikariko bhuyastaijasatamasa bhavan adhyena sattvatmana devanindriyamani no krita disha vatarkapashyashvino vannindrachutamitrakan viduvidish shri rudra sharirakan. because we're going step by step, you will not get the flow. Eventually, it will all come together. So the next one, so we have this concept of individuality, which is created. Now, when you have this concept of individuality, all this individual, whoever those beings are, right, needs to be able to, first of all, get knowledge or interact with knowledge, which is the Jnanendriyangal, and then interact or then actually do actions, which is the Karmendriyangal. But even before those Jnanendriyangal and Karmendriyangal, which is going to come in stanza 7, are going to be there needs to be owners of that, right? So I always draw a parallel example of saying, if you are a chef, you then have, what you have to do first? You have to have the basic ingredients required for cooking. You need to have flour, you need to have sugar, you need to have all of those things, right? And then you are not going to be able to cater the entire order. So you need to have sous chefs who are going to be helping you, right? So as a chef, when you're planning, you first have to say, I'm going to have a sous chef who's going to man the station. I'm going to have another person who's going to man the station. So that is what is happening right now. When you have all these things which have to interact with each other and create a final recipe, there needs to be owners of each of these things. So that is what is happening in this step. Is this thing is now the sous chef is going to take all the common ingredients and they're going to make a unique recipe, right? Which is all of us beings and the planets and everything. So now what is happening is the individual roles are being defined, saying that there is going to be one person who's going to play the role of managing air. There's one person who's going to play the role of managing Agni or heat and the properties of Agni. What is going to happen when Agni interacts with something? Now, Agni is a little bit, for example, it could be Agni Dev, it is fire, but it's talking about a role, not an individual person, right? Agni is a role. Vayu Deva is a role. Indra is a role. It is like a vice president or a president, not an individual. Later on, people are going to take that role, which is going to come much later. So right now, the definitions of these roles are getting created of who's going to manage the Jnanendriyangal, who's going to manage the Karmendriyangal. So eventually, I'll bring it all together after we finish the Dasakam 5 and the Dasakam 6. I'll bring it together, but you have to kind of go with the flow for now. Soham cha triguna kramat, comma, trividhatam, you can break it that ma if you want, trividhatam asadya vaikariko, comma, bhuyas taijasa tamasaviti bhavan. So if you have an in and a na, we're just going to break it into an in and a. Double in Sanskrit, in na will be there. So bhavan, comma, आद्येन सत्वात्मना सोहं च त्रिगुणक्रमात् त्रिविधताम् आसाद्य वैकारिको भूयस्तैजसतामसाविति भवन् आद्येन सत्वात्मना.
सोऽहं च त्रिगुणक्रमा त्रिविधता आसाद्य वैकारिको भूयस्तैजसतामसाविति भवानाद्येन सत्त्वात्मना.
Second line, bhavan, bhavan, not bhavan, bhavan, and then a comma there. Okay, and then similarly, first line after kramat, there is a comma.
सोऽहं च त्रिगुणक्रमात् त्रिविधता आसाद्य वैकारिको भूयस्तैजसतामसाविति भवान् आद्येन सत्त्वात्मना.
Again, Sonika, you said bhavan in the second line. So bhavan.
Okay. सोऽहं च त्रिगुणक्रमात् त्रिविधता आसाद्य वैकारिको भूयस्तैजसतामसाविति भवन्नाद्येन सत्त्वात्मना.
सोऽहं च त्रिगुणक्रमात् त्रिविधताम् आसाद्य वैकारिको भूयस्तैजसतामसाविति भवन् आद्येन सत्त्वात्मना. सोऽहं च त्रिगुणक्रमात् त्रिविधताम् आसाद्य वैकारिको भूयस्तैजसतामसाविति भवन् आद्येन सत्त्वात्मना
Devan, I'm just breaking at the na if you want to. Devan Indriya Manino Krita, one word. Indriya Manino Krita, comma. Disha Vatarka Pashyashvino, comma. Disha Vatarka Pashyashvino, comma. Vannindrachuta, Vanni referring to Agni, it's a half ha, silent ha there. Vannindrachuta Mitrakan, Bidhu, Bidhi, Sri Rudra, Sharirakan. That last line is no comma, it goes together. So this is kind of defining who are all the going to be the owners of the various things, but it's just a definition. Nobody is formed right now, nothing is created. We're still in the definition phase of the creation, except for Mahat and the concept of Ahankaram. Devanindriyamani no krita Disha Bhatharka Pashyashvino Vannindrachuta Mitrakan Vidu Vidishri Rudra Sharirakan. So the mute will get. I muted you because you were unmuted when I was talking, so it was interrupting. So yeah, go ahead.
देवानिन्द्रियमानिनो कृतदिशा वार्तार्कपाश्यश्विनो वन्नीन्द्राच्युतमित्रकान् विदुविधि श्रीरुद्रशारीरकान्.
Third line la, after mani no krita, there is a comma.
देवानिन्द्रियमानिनो कृतदिशा वार्तार्कपाश्यश्विनो वन्नीन्द्राच्युतमित्रकान् विदुविधि श्रीरुद्रशारीरकान्.
देवानिन्द्रियमानिनो कृत दिशा वार्ताकपश्यश्विनौ वन्नीन्द्राच्युत मित्रकान् विदुविधि श्रीरुद्रशारीरकान्.
Usha, on the third line la, Pashyashvino.
पाश्यश्विनो देवानिन्द्रियमानिनो कृत दिशा वार्ताकपाश्यश्विनो वन्नीन्द्रच्युत मित्रकान् विदुविधि श्रीरुद्रशारीरकान्.
Fourth line, first word mattam. Vannindrachuta.
वन्नीन्द्राच्युत मित्रकान्.
Stanza 7. Bhuman. Sorry, somebody had a question?
No.
Bhumanmanasabuddhyahankritiमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्त्वांश एवासृजत् जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणः तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्. So far we have the owners of this. Now, when you think of the Jnanendriyangal, which is called Jnana referring to knowledge, Indriyangal referring to the senses, right? So, or organs. So the Jnanendriyangal are the senses or organs with which you can get knowledge, which means you interact with the outside world with the purpose of getting knowledge. So there are 5 of them. So one of them is your eyes, because by seeing you can get information. Second is by ears, by hearing you get it. Then your nose, by smelling you can decipher some things. Then your tongue for the taste, by which you can decipher something. And the second is the last is the skin, which is the tvacham, from which you can feel things, right? Now, these common elements, these are there in all the beings. And later on when we see, we are not talking just of the Bhulokam where we are all there. It's also going to be the higher worlds with the demigods and the Gandharvas and everything are going to come later. But there are certain common elements which are going to be there across everybody. So these 5 Jnanendriyangals are common. You might have different kinds of eyes, but you still need the concept of something through which you can see, right? And that may not be consistent across everybody. Not everybody may have eyes. Some beings may not have nose. But then it's a common thing which has to be created before everything else happens. So that's the next layer or next thing which is getting created is these senses which have to then work, right? You need something through which you can see. You need something through which you can smell. So that is the Jnanendriyangal. Then the next 5 are the Karmendriyangal. So, something by which you can do things, hands. Now you can say a snake does not have hands. Yeah, because not every being needs to have everything, but there are beings which have hands, right? So that hands, and then the legs which is to move, then the mouth to be able to speak, and then your genitals to reproduce, and then excretion, right? So all of these are the 5 karmendriyangals. So these are the basic ingredients which are getting formed. You have owners, and then you have these ingredients of 5 jnanendriyangal and 5 karmendriyangal are now coming. And then eventually all of these are going to result in something, but these are the creation of the concept or the elements of the basic elements required. Bhuman manasa buddhyahankriti is buddhi and ahankriti, but it becomes one word. Buddhyahankriti milach chittakya vrityanvitam. So that's whole line is together. Tachantaha is there, put a ich sound. Tachantah karanam vibho tava balat, comma, satvamsha eva srijat. Bhumanmanasa buddhyahankriti mila chittakya vrityanvitam tachantah karanam vibho tava balat satvamsha eva srijat.
भूमन्मानसबुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्त्वांश एवासृजत.
After balat, there is a comma, okay. The second line.
भूमन्मानसबुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्त्वांश एवासृजत.
भूमन्मानसबुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्त्वांश एवासृजत्. भूमन्मानसबुद्ध्यहङ्कृतिमिलच्चित्ताख्यवृत्त्यन्वितं तच्चान्तःकरणं विभो तव बलात् सत्त्वांश एवासृजत्.
Jatas taijasato dashendriya ganaha, that is goes away, puts a visargan comma, ganaha. Tattama samshat punaha, another visargan comma, end of that line, punaha. Fourth line, if you have is at the beginning, that will go away. Tanmatram nabhaso marut purapate, comma. Shabdo jani tvad balat. This tanmatram I'm going to explain in the next stanza. After marut purapate, comma, shabdo jani tvad balat. Jatastaija dashendriya ganaha tattamasam punaha tanmatram nabhaso marut purapate shabdo jani tvad balat.
जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणस्तत्त्वामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्.
So the third line, ganaha, we are removing that is, putting a visargan comma. And fourth line, after marut purapate, comma.
जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणस्तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्.
Third line, like ganaha.
I thought I said that, but okay.
No, it's okay. Just make sure. Yeah, Gana. And then.
Okay.
चातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणः तत्तामसांशु पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्.
The third line, Tattama Samshat.
तत्तामसांशुत् पुनः.
Samshat.
तत्तामसांशात् पुनः. जातस्तैजसतो दशेन्द्रियगणः तत्तामसांशात् पुनः तन्मात्रं नभसो मरुत्पुरपते शब्दो जनित्वद्बलात्.
Translate. Shabdhat vyoma tatas sasarjita vibho sparsham tato marutam tasmadrupa mato maho tacharasam toyam cha gandham mahim evam madava purva kalanat adhyadya dharman vitam bhutagramamimam tvameva bhagavan prakashayastamasat. We won't have time today because it's a little longer meaning, so I'll say it next class. We'll just do the chanting. Shabdat vyoma, put a comma there. Tataha, put a is, tatas, sasarjita, vibho, sparsham, tato, marutam, comma. Tasmad rupa mato. I'm just breaking the dra into a it and a ra. Tasmad rupa mato mahota cha rasam, comma, toyam cha gandham mahim. Sabdhat vyoma tatassa sarjita vibho sparsham tato marutam tasmad rupa mato mahota cha rasam toyam cha gandham mahim.
शब्दाद्व्योम ततः ससर्जितविभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतम् तस्माद्रूपमतो महोत च रसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम् शब्दाद्व्योम ततः ससर्जितविभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतम् तस्माद्रूपमतो महोत च रसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम्
शब्दाद्व्योम ततः ससर्जित विभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतं तस्माद्रूपमतो महोथ च रसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम् शब्दाद्व्योम ततः ससर्जित विभो स्पर्शं ततो मारुतं तस्माद्रूपमतो महोथ च रसं तोयं च गन्धं महीम्.
So the first line after Shabdat Vyoma, comma, okay. I think second time you paused it in a different place, but
okay.
All right, we'll just stop it here because I don't know if we'll be able to complete the last two lines. So we'll end it here. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Santhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashata sahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtapatre पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.